like to share with you guys a story about something that happened to me once. This is kind of a paranormal event story, and I'm a pest control technician, I was a commercial route manager for about 13 years, and so I went into different accounts and service places like churches and schools, restaurants, those type things. So I've seen got to see a lot of interesting things, a lot of things I like to forget actually, but a few paranormal accounts happened in some of these places that I serviced. In some places we have to service at night, and so we have key accounts, and some of them are actually pretty creepy, but I've had paranormal experiences my whole life. It seems like a lot of that stuff follows me, and I think that, you know, some people are more in tune to the spirit world. And having said that, I went to this church here in the town that I live, and it's one of the older churches here in this town, and it was built probably back in early 1900s, probably 1910 maybe. And there's still an actual part of the church that was the original church back in 1910, and then there's newer parts that were built, and still the newer parts are like from the 30s, I think. In any case, it's a beautiful church, and I was doing their service one day, and the only person that was there when I would do the service was just the receptionist in the office, and she would, I'd ring the bell, she'd let me in the door, and I would do the service. And so I went that day and did the service. Well, when I start my service, I'll always go to the basement to start down there. And as I started down the steps, when you get down to the basement, to the bottom of the steps, there's a hallway that runs the length of the church down there. And there, at the time, and they've redid it now, it's different. But there was an old coal room for the furnace, and there was the old archives where they had, you know, all the documents from the church, and a pantry. But it was like kind of looked the same as it did back in the day. But the archives were like, if you go down to the bottom of the steps, it was like straight across from where the steps start. And so anyway, I started down those steps, and I got about halfway down the steps, and out of the archives, the old archives, come walking an apparition. And when I seen it, I absolutely froze. It took my breath, and I physically had to grab the rail on the steps because to keep from falling. It scared me so bad. And I wasn't really like, I guess not, scared is not the word, it was shocked. I was like shocked because I wasn't like in fear of it. But anyway, it was about 6 feet tall, and it had a illuminated mist around it. And it was illuminated. It was like white light. It wasn't dark. It was an illuminated like mist about 6 feet tall. And inside the mist, I could see movement. I could see the arms moving and the legs moving. It almost looked like a robe, like a priest's robe inside there. And I could see the flow of like the arms and the legs. And it walked toward the steps, like it was going to come up the steps. And then it turned to its right and went right down the hall. I mean, it wasn't like it was fast. It wasn't like it was like a blur. It took its time and walked slowly toward the steps and turned and went down the hall. And for like, well, it seemed like an eternity, I stood there on the steps, just froze, like, and I thought to myself, man, I got to go down here to do the service. And so I cautiously went down the steps. Of course, like I wasn't really afraid, but it was just like, holy, I mean, it actually happened. And so when I got down to the bottom of the steps, you know, I had my flashlight, and I'm looking back and forth like Barney Fife, you know, shaking all over. Like, man, if I see that again, I'm going to flip out. But I went ahead and did the service, didn't see anything. And when I got finished with the service, I went back upstairs and talked to the receptionist, who was always there by herself usually. And I asked her, I said, have you ever seen anything weird in here or heard any noises or anything? And she's like, why? And I was like, well, I wasn't going to tell you, but I just seen something amazing downstairs, or going down the stairs. And I said, I wasn't going to say anything, but it was truly, I've never seen anything like it. And so I told her about it, and she was like, whoa. But she said that, she had heard footsteps before when nobody's there coming down the hall. And that she said that right down the hall from her office is the old sanctuary, and it's beautiful with the wood, the ceilings and everything, the pews. It's gorgeous. They've got huge stained glass windows. And she said that one day she was in her office and it was completely quiet. She never played her radio. She just did her work and was in a quiet office. But she said one day in the sanctuary she heard like preaching going on, like hellfire and brimstone, like preaching for just about 5 seconds, and it just faded out. And she was like, she didn't know what to think, but she said, that she did hear that. And so I explained to her what I saw and stuff. And about that time, the pastor came in, and she was like, tell him what you saw. And I was like, oh God, he's gonna think I'm a nut or whatever. But I explained it to him, and he was like, hey, he said, just because this is a church doesn't mean that there's not, the spirit world is as real as this world. And he said, sometimes things can manifest. He said, were you afraid of it? And I was like, well, no. I said, I didn't have a sense of this is evil or anything. I just had a sense of shock that I actually seen it. And so every month after that, when I go do their service, for the longest time, that's all I thought about. And was seeing it again. I was like, go down the steps and I'd be expecting to see it. Well, I didn't see it. And it was like maybe a year later, and I had really forgot about it by then. I hadn't forgot about it, but it just wasn't on my mind when I go to the service. I just didn't think about it. And so I started down the steps, and I turned left to go down the hall, which was the way it went. When it came out, it went right. And at the very end of that hallway, and I never really turned on lights. I always just carried a flashlight, and I wouldn't turn on a light unless I needed it. It was kind of dark. But at the end of the hallway, there's double doors that go into another section, and those double doors there's glass panes in each side of the double door. And so I got about halfway down that hallway, and I was looking at the door. Well, on the other side of the glass, that same weird-looking, misty, illuminated presence started out like the size of a softball up in that window, and it started to materialize, like get bigger. And I never will forget, I turned around, I was like, no, 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 no. And I went back down the hallway and went back up the steps. And I went up and told the receptionist, I said, look, I said, I just seen it again. And I said, I don't know if I can go down there today. I said, I may need to come back tomorrow. I said, and it really shook me up, because I seen it come up and start to materialize. And it probably wouldn't have done anything to me or anything like that, but it just really freaked me out. And usually I'm not afraid of things like that. I'm a Christian. I'm a born again Christian, and I know that God is with me in this. But whenever you're confronted with something like that, and it's like the unknown, and it's physically showing itself, this thing was like, it was as big as a man, and it had it had movement. And looking back now, I kind of wish I would have just waited. Everybody says, well, what, don't you wish you would have just waited? And yeah, I do. I wish I would have waited to see if it would materialize and come, if I was brave enough to let it come toward me down the hall. And I wish I would have had enough presence of mind to take my phone out and get a picture, but in those times, it happens so fast and things, and you just don't think about it. You're just kind of in the moment. But I've had a lot of paranormal experiences throughout my life, and that was one that I've told the story to, and they're like, man, you need to share that with somebody. So that's kind of what this channel is going to be devoted to. It's not just paranormal, but it's going to be topics about, religion, paranormal activity, things like UFOs, the unknown, maybe a little bit of politics, may not. It could be, just about anything. But it's kind of like stories of things that I've experienced. And like I say, with being a pest control technician, the stories that I've told people that I've experienced, they say, man, you ought to write a book, or you ought to put it on video or something. But and so that's why I decided to kind of document a few of these things and see if people are interested in hearing them. Everything that I tell you is true. I don't have any reason whatsoever to embellish or to lie about things I've experienced. It's just what I've experienced. And so if you like these things, please hit the like button, and please subscribe and hit the bell so that you can see more of these videos and share them if you'd like. But other than that, I am out for the day. You guys take care and check it out.